it's Adam, and I am answering a question from a tested premium member, a specific question from a specific member. The member's username is Tonerow, and they want to know, when working in the shop with someone else, how do you approach everyone's varied skill sets? I'm sure in some cases the master-apprentice roles are clear, but what about when it's somewhat equal or unclear? This is a fantastic question. In your life, as a person who makes things of any kind, you will encounter all sorts of different people of different skill sets, and it is really important to navigate those differences with an eye towards being egalitarian about it. So what do I mean? Yes, you're right. In the master-apprentice relationship with people who work for me, I don't have any problem stopping someone and telling them, yeah, maybe you want to do it this way instead of that way. In my experience, this won't work, but this will. That being said, I don't ever get upset that people might be slower than I am or might use different techniques than I do. I have my own very specific way of working, and I don't desire or need to impose that on anybody else. When the relationship is more equal, this is tricky. This is definitely trickier. At Industrial Light and Magic, I had the experience a few times of working with people with far more seniority in the shop than I had, who nonetheless were going down a road that I didn't think was going to be fruitful. And it's not really, we are technically equals in the working environment, but they have, 20 years in the space, maybe not that long, but they had more years than I do. And I learned something from Tina Fey's book, Bossy Pants, that's germane to this, which is, she said that Lorne Michaels told her, don't waste time telling crazy people they're crazy. This advice changed my life. And what it did was put a question into my head, which was, do I need to correct this behavior, or will the world correct it for me? And this is a really great question to ask yourself. So I would be there with an old timer, not an old timer, really, all of the old guard of ILM were just awesome. I don't mean, I want to make it clear, I'm not talking about certain folks. But if you're there with somebody who is going to try and solve a problem in a way that you don't think is fruitful, and you don't necessarily have authority to stop them, frankly, let them go forth. But also you could find ways to workshop suggestions, unless they're a total jerk and they don't want to hear anything. And frankly, someone who doesn't want to hear any other way to do something is a jerk to me. Like, there's always a better way to do something. There's always a reason to discuss it. And I had an experience. So to bring this all back to There But For The Grace Go I was talking to Katie Collman, the astronaut. She was here in the shop a few weeks ago, and she's a friend of mine. And I was talking about working with somebody in a situation just like this. And I was saying, this person came with decades of experience, and they were a genuine expert in their field, and we were doing something that was slightly outside their experiential range and outside of mine, but I could see exactly how it needed to get done. And I couldn't just dictate it to them. That was not going to be socially acceptable. That would make the day really awful. So I found myself sort of massaging the day and sort of letting them sort of go down some wrong paths and figuring it out for themselves. And I told Katie the story, and she said, wow, that sounds kind of like just being married to a guy. And I was like, oh yeah, no, certainly, I get that. As a recovering mansplainer, I am trying, Ringo, and I heard her loud and clear. So look, whenever I get a little bit antsy about someone going down a path that I don't necessarily think is right, I think about all the times that I have done that to other people. Look, working with people is difficult. It's never going to be easy, and in fact, it shouldn't be. Making stuff requires that you go down different and wrong paths in order to find the right one. And the more you do that with grace and by listening to people and by making sure that you're heard and hopefully that you're working with people who can hear you, the better time you all will have. That is a great question, Tonerow. Thank you for asking it. Please keep submitting your questions and I will keep answering them.